Welcome to the Lead 360 podcast. I am your host, Anthony Waite, and it is so good to be with you as we talk about life, leadership, and leaving a legacy, one that you will one day be proud of. And today, what we're going to talk about is something that is so simple, yet so hard for leaders to understand. And I see a lot of leaders today who get this simple principle wrong and expect and wonder why their influence is diminishing. And remember, just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's easy. And this is the concept of leading yourself first. You cannot lead others well if you're losing the battle with yourself. It is not optional. Leading yourself, self leadership is the entry fee to influence, to having an impact, and to helping people get to where they want to go. Because the question you're going to ask yourself is, if you can't lead you, then how are you going to lead me? If you can't lead you, then you have no business trying to lead me. And this goes in life, leadership, and in your legacy. Your kids are going to question you. The people that you lead are going to question you. If you're a coach, if you're a person of influence, people are going to question, how are you going to lead me if you can't lead yourself? And this is all around the idea of self-discipline. And so I'm going to give you a couple of points today that'll help you start analyzing and looking at yourself differently and how you lead you first. Because again, leadership begins with the self, with leading yourself well. Point number one is self-leadership precedes all influence. How you show up, how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you go into a room and command respect. Notice I didn't say demand, but command. There's a difference there. When you're a leader and you have to demand respect, that's not a good thing. Command respect means that you go into a meeting, a room, a situation, an interaction, and people are drawn to you. They don't try to run from you or prevent the interaction from happening. And this comes with the sense of self-awareness that you have. That's what attracts people to you. And so many people get this wrong. So many leaders get this wrong because they assume that their position, their title, their what they did, in 2015 or what they did back in the day, they believe that it matters. And maybe to a certain extent, never be a has-been, right? I see this all the time where people, assume that they're going to influence people based on what they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares what you did. They want to know, what can you do? How can you help me? And it goes back to the three questions that everybody wants to know. Can you help me? Can I trust you? And do you care? And nothing speaks louder than your ability to lead yourself. And so understand that point number one is self-leadership precedes all influence. Before anyone follows your words, they're going to follow your walk. How are you carrying yourself? How are you leading yourself? And before they trust your guidance, understand that they watch your character. I can tell you that when you're not leading yourself, when you're not in integrity with what you say and what you do, how you show up, people can feel that. They have a sense that what you're saying isn't in alignment with how you actually operate. And so you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what's the matter with me? Most people spend time asking themselves, who's the matter with me? And when you say, what's the matter with me? You understand that there's room for growth. You understand that there's room for you to learn. And then eventually you create space that allows you to lead. And so here's what I've learned over 21 years in the military, and with the work I do today as a coach, as a speaker, as a trainer, as a person that goes and trains on these topics. People don't rise because you talk louder. They rise because your life speaks clearer. And what that means is that you have a proven track record, but you're continually getting results. I've done a lot of great things in my time and over the years, but people don't care about what you did. They care about what you're doing. And it's not just being a one-hit wonder, it's continuous results and continually having the ability to show people and help them feel like you actually care, that it's not about me anymore. And I think we all get to this point in our life, and maybe you're there too, or maybe you're going to be there one day, where you realize that it's no longer about me. Like the wins and losses, I've taken a bunch of those and I've had a lot of ups and downs. But in today, how I operate is it's not about me anymore. It's not what can I get, it's what can I give? How can I be of service to other people? And it's not a place of selfishness, but a place of service. And in order to serve people, you have to create yourself and make yourself able to serve other people. And that means you have the ability and the willingness to serve other people. But the only way to do that is to continually grow yourself. Remember, we cannot give what we do not have. And when we talk about people don't rise because you speak louder, they rise because your life speaks clearer. This is your team, your family, your children. They're not just listening to you, they're watching you. They're watching what you do, how you operate, how you move, how you treat people. And they're following whatever example you consistently give. It's not just in a day, but daily. I look at my sons and they're at that age now where they're watching dad. They're watching how I operate. They watch how I talk. And I don't always get it right. Let me just put that out there. I'm not perfect, but they watch how I carry myself. They watch how I treat people. They watch how I go to the gym and work out, how disciplined I am with how I operate on a daily basis. And it's contagious. And they follow my lead. They're interested in working out now. They're playing their sports. When I tell them to give it 100%, when I tell them to hustle, when I tell them about mindset, they're able to look at me and say, man, he's speaking from what he knows and what he does, not just from theory or what he read in a book or watched on YouTube. It's how he operates every single day. And they want to be just like dad. And the same thing goes for you. If you're a parent, understand your children are watching you. And they're going to absorb and learn the same behaviors, the same habits, the same mindset, the same way that you carry yourself. That's how they're going to operate. How you treat people, that's how they're going to treat people. And so you have to be the example. And you do that through your actions, not just by your words. And here's the hard truth. If you can't lead your emotions, your habits, and your decisions, your default will be reacting, not leading. And there's a difference between reactive and proactive leadership. Reactive means is that you're waiting for things to happen and then you take action. Proactive means you're doing the work and not waiting for the result. You're putting in the reps so that when you need those results, you're able to execute without thinking, without reacting. It's just a instinct, if you will. That's why I tell people, when I read books, I don't know when I'm going to use those principles, but if I never learn it, I don't want to be caught in a situation where I wish I would have, or I should have, or I could have. And so everything that you learn today is going to be a tool that you might use in the future. And I'm so glad that I listened to one of my mentors many years ago when he talked about reading every single day, leadership, business, and the self-development books, because at first I would read them and I would say, well, this doesn't apply to my life. I'm not in a leadership position. I'm not in a role. I don't have the responsibility. Why would I be reading now when I don't even need it, when I won't even use it? Fast forward now, to what I'm doing today. Every time that I'm put into a position or an opportunity, I execute and I fall back on my learning, fall back on those things that I read many years ago. And I realized that's why I did it. That's why it was important. Because, just recently I had a call with the chief of staff. I'm in the military and, we have a chief of staff and we have a commanding officer. And they called me into the office and they said, my boss is retiring and we're in a hiring freeze right now and they're not able to hire anybody else for that position. So they said, you're up next. You're it. I had a smile on my face because I realized that this is what I've been preparing for. John Wooden said, if you wait for the opportunity to prepare, it's already too late. And now that I'm stepping into this role, this is all the things that I've been doing over the last decade, all the leadership, all the self-development, all the growth and development that I've had for myself has prepared me for this moment. And what I don't want for you is to be put in that position, get that phone call, get that opportunity and not be prepared, and to have self-doubt and not have confidence to step in that role and fulfill it and do it to the best of your ability. Because when you fail to do so, you're not only failing yourself, you're failing the people that you lead. And then you miss the opportunity. Or even worse, you take the opportunity and you fail miserably because you can't lead yourself. And so you have to constantly be in this mindset of preparing yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, because when that opportunity comes, not only will you be prepared, but you'll have the confidence to move forward, be fulfilled, and to fill that role and that responsibility and lead your people well. In the Bible, Proverbs 25:28 says this: a man without self-control is like a city broken into and left without walls. You see, that emotional regulation, that self-awareness is so important as leaders, because when we don't operate and exercise our self-control, we lose control. We lose control of the situation. We lose control of the situation or the circumstance. We find ourselves in a position where our life becomes out of control. And I've been there many of times. And I'll tell you that it is a crappy feeling. It is a feeling that is not good for you or the people that you lead. And so this self-control is important, because if you can't control yourself, you're unable to control the situation or circumstance that you find yourself in. And for me, as a nurse in the critical care and trauma setting many years ago, uh, we have to have control of the situation, because if we don't, then people die. And so the same thing goes in your life. People may not die physically, but they'll die emotionally, spiritually, relationally. You'll kill those and sever those relationships. And so you have to be able to control yourself. And what I realized is that I can't control what happens outside of me, but I can control what happens inside of me. And that's the self-confidence, that's the discipline, that's that figure it out mentality, that, you know what, we're faced with a shit sandwich, but how can we operate and make this the best of the situation that we can with what we got? And the better you are, the better the outcomes. The better you are, the better your people become. And instead of getting bitter, you get better as a result. Stoicism will tell us about self-governance. It says, master your impulses, rule yourself before you attempt to guide others. This means that I can't point the finger at those around me. I must look inside of me and say, where did I go wrong? How can I own my part of the pie? How can I own what I did to cause this to happen? Because as a leader, many of you might know this already, but when my team fails, I can't blame it on them, because I'm responsible. I'm the leader. And whatever happens, whether we execute or we fail to execute, that falls on my shoulders. And that's the part of leadership that people don't like. That's the responsibility that people don't accept. And you might know leaders that try to point the finger and blame other people for why it didn't happen, why it didn't work. And I'll tell you, that's a flawed way to operate. As a leader, you own it. You take responsibility. When you do that, now you realize that, hey, there's some room for me to grow, that we might have missed the mark, but guess what? If I'm in charge, I can correct this. I can make it better. And one thing I've done as a leader leading teams is that when my team wins, they get the credit. When we lose, I take ownership, because ultimately as a leader, you're setting the tone, you're setting the pace, you're paving the path forward. And I can't go to my boss, my commanding officer, my chief of staff and say, well, it was my E6's fault. It was my E5's fault. It was my civilian's fault. I got to own it, and I got to take it on the chin. And that's, again, the hardest part of leadership, is taking that ownership and taking responsibility and owning the situation. And this is why self-leadership is the starting point of every transformation. The internal standard that determines your external influence. Your internal standard determines your external influence. So the standard that you set for yourself is a standard that you can set for other people. Never try to set a standard or expectation for others that you have failed to set for yourself. And one of the philosophies that I've had throughout the military as an officer and enlisted has been, never give a command that you have yet to follow. Never give a command that you are not willing to follow. And what this means is that I will never tell you to do something that I have yet to do. And I will never tell you to do something that I'm not willing to do. And if I do tell you to do something I've yet to do or not willing to do, then I'm going to do it right next to you. I'm going to be right there in the trenches, getting my hands dirty, and we're going to learn it together. And when you do that, it builds trust. It builds honesty and integrity. And your people know that you're not scared to do the work. But how many times have you seen a leader that says, do as I say, not as I do? They tell, in the military, we have people that try to, tell people, you got to do your PRT, you got to lose weight. But yet they're failing their PRT and they're overweight. It's hypocrisy at best. And you have to be able to give a command that you have already followed and give a command that you are willing to follow. You have to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk. Point number 2, understand that your discipline determines your destiny. Your future is shaped far more by your discipline than by your motivation. It's one thing to go in there and pep talk and get people riled up and hyped up and ready to take charge. It's another thing to be disciplined enough to follow through on those actions. Motivation is fleeting. It's one thing to feel good. It's another thing to consistently do good, to do it every single day, and to be determined to get the result that you're after, because motivation will go away. And what you're left with is the discipline that you cultivated. And so that's why when people say, oh, you're a motivational speaker, I don't like the word motivation, because I want you to take action. I want you to get pumped up, but then execute, to dial in your discipline, to be consistent, because that consistency builds confidence. And when you're confident and when your staff is confident, that's where competence is built. But many people lack competence today because they have no confidence to take action and to fail. And so with the confidence piece, it allows you to get in the game and stay there, even when you fall down. And so that confidence has to be earned. It cannot be learned. You cannot read a book. You cannot listen to a podcast. I can't give you a cup of confidence and all of a sudden now you can go out and tackle the world. It's earned by getting in the game, putting in the reps, understanding that failure is part of that process, and staying in the game long enough to see it through. And so confidence is so important. Okay. Motivation is the spark, but discipline is the engine. Every day you're making small choices that either compound into your destiny or your downfall. It's up to you. And so these choices that you make every single day are going to determine whether you succeed or whether you fail. And so understand that the choices, even the smallest of choices that you make every single day, have a ripple effect. There's a secondary and tertiary effect that happens when you make a choice, when you make a decision. So therefore, you have to be decisive, but that decisiveness comes from your confidence by having a standard and relying on your core values. When you have your core values and your vision and your virtues in alignment, you're able to make decisions very quickly. And you understand that you made them to the best of your ability because they fall on your core values. It's not something that you made up. It's something that you live by every single day. Understand that discipline is as simple as waking up when you don't feel like it, going for a run even though it's raining, going to the gym and working out even whenever you're tired and you're beat down from yesterday. It's doing what's required, not just what's convenient. And I'll tell you, leadership is not convenient. It's sometimes leadership is a lonely ship, but most importantly, it's never convenient. It's never the right time. It doesn't always feel good. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. But that's what separates the good from the great. It's choosing principles over preferences. It's having a standard and operating from that standard and not deviating from that standard. If you want to know the distance between the man you are and the man that you are called to be, it's the discipline. That's the bridge that gaps where you are and where you know you should be. That's what closes the gap. And there's a saying that I always talk about when I speak. There's expectations and there's reality. And that gap in between the expectations and reality is called disappointment. And how do you close that gap of disappointment? Through your discipline. If you have an expectation that's up here and the reality is you're down here, that gap of disappointment is pretty great, isn't it? But how you close it is by being disciplined every single day and executing on the principles that you know will close that gap to help you go from reality to expectation, to meeting those expectations, and not just meeting them, but also exceeding them. And so the beautiful thing is about discipline is that it's available to everyone. It's not, nobody's born with it. You cultivate it every single day. And if you don't have it right now, you can start right now, today, to cultivate that discipline. It's available to everyone, but only very few of us choose to be disciplined. We know what we need to do. We know what we should do. We know what we could do, that if we would do it, it could change our life. When people come to me about working out, everybody knows how to lose weight, exercise, eat healthy. Simple. Drink enough water to fuel your body. It's very simple. And think about something that you want to do right now. It's very simple. I bet you can explain it in 2 to 3 steps, how to go from where you are to where you want to be. People say, I want to get into public speaking or I want to start a podcast. Good. Start speaking. And they look at me puzzled, like, what do you mean? You want to be a speaker, a public speaker. You want to go out and change the world with your words and your actions and what you do. Start speaking, start talking to people. It's as simple as that. In fact, that's how this podcast was created. I wanted to get better at my public speaking. So I bought a camera, I got a microphone, and I started speaking into the camera. I started dialing in my tonality, how I talk, my thoughts, and putting them down from paper to product. And when I did that, now when I get to go speak, it's almost fluent and flawless because I do this every single day. It's a practice, it's a behavior, it's a choice that I make. It's discipline in doing it. And it doesn't always feel good. I still get nervous. I still have butterflies in my stomach and feel like I'm irrelevant, but my discipline is more important than my feelings of and my validation of, am I good enough? When you're disciplined, you do the things you need to do regardless of how you feel. It's your ability to give yourself a command and follow through regardless of how you feel. And when you do that, you become unstoppable. You become this person who builds proof that it is possible. And then the opinions of other people no longer become your truth. So if you want to achieve uncommon results, you must live by uncommon discipline. And that's the thing about today's discipline is so uncommon in the world today. We want, quick fixes. We want the instant results, the instant gratification, but that's not how life works. That's not how the world turns. It's repetitions equal results. And you're going to put in the reps, and you might not see the results today. You might not see them tomorrow. You might not see them next week. But if you stay consistent and you stay disciplined, results are inevitable. Understand that discipline is that bridge. It bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So if you know you want to be better, you want to do better and have better in life, start being disciplined in the small things. Once you become disciplined in small things, then you become responsible for the bigger things, and your life begins to change. And not only are you leading one person, now you're leading 2, 3, 5, 4,000 people. And it's as simple as that, but you got to give it time. Time is the great equalizer. Point number 3, you can delegate tasks, but you cannot delegate responsibility. This goes back to being able to praise the people for the wins, praise your team for the wins, but understand that when you get a loss, when you take a loss, you're ultimately responsible as the leader. You can outsource a task. You can assign the work. You can hand off the checklist, but you can never hand off responsibility. And your responsibility as a leader is to, 1, lead yourself. Number 2, your responsibility is to take care of your people and lead them in the right direction. Number 3 is your responsibility as a leader. Number 2, your responsibility is to take care of your people and lead them in the right direction. Number 3 is your responsibility as a leader is to be available and to be real and relevant to those you lead. You've got to be able to relate. And the only way you're able to do that is by being vulnerable and sharing the process with your people, and understand that you are a person in progress, that you're not perfect. You cannot hide behind the titles. You cannot hide behind the labels, the letters behind your name. People don't connect with that. What people connect with is when you meet them where they're at and lift them to where they should be. And when you're in leadership, understand that people are automatically going to assume that you don't understand, that you don't get it. And that is your time to shine as a leader, because now you can share the process, how you were once where they were, all the things that you failed at, all the things that you succeeded at, not just the wins, but also the losses. But are you willing to peel back the curtain and be real and raw so that you can be relevant? Not many leaders are able to do this. As a leader, your responsibility has your name on it. It's you as a leader, and your name is on the product. And whether you touch the task or not, ultimately, you're going to be responsible for that outcome. That's the weight of leadership. And it's also the privilege. Understand that leadership is a privilege. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but it's also a privilege to be charged with helping people, to be the person that people come to when they need answers, when they have a problem and they need a solution. And here's the thing, you don't have to have all the answers, but you can at least be a resource. Hey, I don't know, but I know somebody who may know something that you need. But if you don't establish relationships, if you don't network, if you don't get surrounded by the right people, you'll never be able to help others get to where they want to be. For a long time, I thought that I had to have it all figured out, that I had to have the answers for everything. And what I realized is that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just have to be able to influence the smartest person in the room. And you do that by how you lead yourself, by your ability to command a room, to have presence and have your presence felt when you walk into a room, so that when you do need something or your people need something, you know who to go to. You have a Rolodex of information, of people, of knowledge, of a network, and you're able to share that with those around you. Now, understand that your people don't need a perfect leader. They need an accountable one, somebody who's going to step up and be present when they have a problem. And accountability begins with ownership. We talked about this earlier. Ownership of your actions, ownership of your outcomes, and ownership of your influence. When you are influencing other people, understand that you don't have a choice whether you influence people. You get to choose if it's going to be a positive influence or a negative influence. Everybody influences somebody. And my mentor, John Maxwell, said this, influence is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And if that's true, then we all are responsible for influencing somebody. Now, whether it's a positive or negative, that's up to us. We get to decide, because once you take responsibility of your results, you regain power over your future. Not only that, but your future of the people that you lead. You're able to be that example so that when they are faced with a challenge, they can remind themselves, and they're reminded of, I have somebody that I know I can go to. And if I go to that person, they will help me. Why? Because they are not selfish. They live a life of service. And that's how you should operate every single day. How can I help somebody with what I have? And if I can't help somebody, how can I connect them with somebody who can? Your job as a leader is to be a problem solver. And the bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck. The bigger the problem, the bigger the purpose. But in order to achieve and to figure out those big problems, you got to tap into your potential. Our lives are a constant pursuit of our God-given potential. God's gift to us is this potential that we have inside of us. Our gift to him is our ability to fulfill that potential by being obedient, being disciplined, and making the right choices every single day, being consistent in how we choose to operate. Nobody can take that away from you. Viktor Frankl had a great book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he went to the concentration camps with the Nazis. His family was executed, and he made it out of there. And he said, one thing I learned throughout this whole process is that the one thing they cannot take away from us is our ability to choose. We get to choose what we look at, what we listen to, who we follow. We get to choose who we allow to influence us, because if we don't choose that, we will be influenced by the wrong things, by the wrong people, by the wrong content. And what will happen is we will take that and we will pass that down to those we lead, and most importantly, those we love. And so you constantly got to be aware of, what am I allowing? Who am I allowing to influence me? Because if I don't, I risk the chance of being influenced by the negative. Inputs equal outputs. If I'm taking in garbage, I'm going to give out garbage. But if I'm taking in fruitful messages, fruitful things, I'm surrounding myself by fruitful people, then I can pass that fruit on down to the ones that I lead and those I love. And so be aware of your influences. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the gossip. Don't listen to all the naysayers. Don't listen to all the opinions of other people. Chances are they lack the discipline to even do anything good in life. So why would you follow them? Because if you're leading people, then who's leading you? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. If I'm leading people, who am I allowing to lead me? Who am I following? But most importantly, how am I leading my followers? So I'm going to wrap it up with this. Self-leadership is the foundation. Discipline is the structure, and responsibility is the roof. That builds a solid house for your leadership. Self-leadership is the foundation, discipline is the structure, and responsibility is the roof. Self-leadership, discipline, and responsibility are the keys and the unsexy part of leadership. But if you exercise these daily, you will attract the people in your life that God's called you to lead. Get these three things right, and your leadership becomes unshakable. Your team will feel it, your family will feel it, your future will reflect it. Remember this, that everything, absolutely everything starts with the person in the mirror. Are you proud of the person that you see? When you go home at night and you brush your teeth and you get ready for bed, can you look in the mirror and say, I'm proud of you? That was a hard thing for me to do for so many years. I wasn't proud of the person that I saw in the mirror because I wasn't disciplined enough to do what I know I should have been doing, to execute on the idea and the vision and the purpose that I knew that was inside of me. And it took for me to dial in my discipline, mitigate distraction, and stay focused on who God's called me to be. And eventually, I got to the point where I can look at myself in the mirror and say, man, I'm proud of you. Well done. And I think at the end of our life, I have a good friend, Jonathan Swindle. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Wisconsin. He says, and he has this quote, this Bible verse on his desk. And he says, at the end of our life, we will all get to this one place. And we want to hear those words. Well done, good and faithful servant. And that's the words that we all want to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. But in order to be a good and faithful servant, we must be able to serve people. And every one of us have the ability to do that. The question is, will you choose to do that starting today? Will you choose to be a good influence? Will you choose to have impact? Will you choose to be the example that we need in the world today? It starts with you. So before you lead the room, before you lead the organization, before you lead the family, lead yourself first. And if you do that, there is nothing that anybody can say or do that will take that ability, that impact, that influence, and that purpose away from you. I hope this served you. And if it did, please share this with somebody you lead or somebody you love. And if you want to continue to level up your leadership, look down below. There's a link to some resources that I've created that will help you get started on this. It will help you start thinking differently so that you can act differently. Your thoughts control your actions. And if you start thinking differently, you start seeing things differently. Most importantly, if you start seeing yourself differently, you'll start acting differently. And when you act in a manner that's conducive with the person you're called to be, that's where you find your purpose and that's where you reach your potential. So click the link down below, get your free resources, and I'll see you on the next episode.